Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because, well, we're going to completely reframe your relationship with money. If you've got cash just sitting in a bank account and you feel totally paralyzed by the how of investing, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're drawing on an incredibly insightful framework from Jack Explains Money for this deep dive visual analysis.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, why saving alone doesn't bring wealth. Then we'll look at the core difference between saving and investing. After that, we'll cover some really simple steps for beginners. And finally, we'll wrap up with the incredible power of time and compounding.
All right, Section 1. Why saving doesn't bring wealth.
Now, if you're saving money every single month, honestly, good for you, you're incredibly disciplined. But picture this for a second. You finally do the responsible thing, right? You save up $10,000 over an entire year. You're feeling super proud. Then you open up your banking app, check your balance, and realize that at a typical, say, 0.5% interest rate, you've made a grand total of $50. Just $50. And suddenly, that paralyzing thought creeps in. Wait, am I doing this completely wrong?
And that brings us to this massive paradigm shift. Saving money alone will almost never make you wealthy. I know that might sound a bit controversial, but it's the harsh reality where so many people get permanently stuck. People know saving isn't enough, right? They hear all about stocks and index funds and compound growth. But they have absolutely no idea how to safely make that leap from saving to investing. They're terrified, literally terrified of risking their hard-earned security in the market. So what do? Nothing.
So, let's move on to Section 2, the core difference between saving and investing.
You see, the biggest wealth gap out there isn't actually between savers and spenders, it's between savers and investors. And the reason people hesitate to invest isn't because the math is super complicated, it's just because saving feels incredibly safe. So, to cross that gap, we've got to mentally separate our money into two very specific buckets. Bucket number 1 is your safety money. This is pure protection, and you expect it to never, ever move. Bucket number 2 is your growth money. Its one and only job is to grow, and because of that, it is entirely allowed to fluctuate. Assigning these specific jobs to your money, it dramatically reduces that anxiety of losing it.
And the classic seed analogy brilliantly illustrates the whole concept. Think of saving your money like taking a bunch of seeds and storing them in a glass jar. You are definitely protecting them from the elements, but absolutely nothing is going to grow in there. Investing, on the other hand, is like taking those exact same seeds and planting them in the dirt. Sure, it looks a bit messy at first, but putting them in the right environment is exactly what allows them to grow into something massive over time. To put that into perspective, the mathematical reality here is just staggering. Imagine you take $10,000. If you put it in a savings account, earning roughly 1%, after 20 years, you'll have about $12,200. But if you take that same $10,000 and invest it at the historical average of the S&P 500, which usually hovers around 10% a year, you're looking at roughly $67,000. It is the exact same starting money, but a completely different life outcome.
Which brings us to Section 3, simple steps for investing beginners.
So the crucial point here is, how do we actually do this? How do we transition safely from a saver to an investor without completely freaking out? Well, here is Jack's 5-step progression. Step 1, build an emergency fund. Step 2, make that mental separation. Step 3, start small. Step 4, stick to simple investments. And Step 5, maintain consistent discipline. The absolute genius of this framework is that you tackle these stages in order, meaning you never have to risk your baseline security. Let's zoom in on Step 1 for a second, because before you invest a single dollar, you absolutely need an emergency fund. We're talking 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved entirely in cash. This is that safety bucket we talked about. It's for a sudden job loss, medical emergencies, maybe the car breaks down. And here's a wild fact. The biggest reason people panic sell their investments at the wrong time is simply because they need the cash too soon. A proper emergency fund literally protects your investments from the unexpected chaos of your own life.
All right, once that emergency fund is locked in and you've mentally separated your money buckets, it's time for Step 3, starting small. Look, there is this massive myth out there that you need thousands of dollars just to start investing. You absolutely do not. Many platforms out there let you start with just 50 or 100 bucks. At this stage, please don't worry about making massive profits. Focus entirely on building the habit. Contributing small, regular amounts is the absolute foundation for everything that comes next.
Now, step 4 is where beginners often trip up. They want to jump straight into crypto speculation or day trading. Please keep it simple. Even legendary investor Warren Buffett has repeatedly recommended low-cost index funds for most everyday investors. And it makes perfect sense. Instead of trying to pick one winning company, an index fund instantly diversifies your money across hundreds of companies all at once. It's wonderfully boring, but it significantly lowers your risk while driving solid long-term growth.
Let's move to section 4, the power of time and compounding.
When you stick to simple investments, start small, and stay disciplined, time becomes your absolute best friend. This is the real magic. Imagine you consistently invest just $300 a month. Assuming an 8% average annual return, after 25 years, you'd be sitting on roughly $285,000. But here's the jaw-dropping part. Out of that total, you only contributed $90,000 out of pocket. The rest, almost $195,000, is pure investment growth. That is the magic of compounding doing the heavy lifting for you.
Of course, we have to address the elephant in the room. What happens when the market crashes? Well, the truth is, market crashes are completely normal. They've happened dozens of times throughout history. But when you're disciplined, you actually reframe these market drops as a feature, not a bug. Think about it. When the market drops, your consistent monthly investment is suddenly buying way more shares at a lower, discounted price. Experienced investors don't panic because they're thinking in decades, not in days.
To summarize this whole journey, it really just boils down to this. Saving money gives you stability. It protects you from the rain. But investing? Investing gives you freedom. It actually builds your future. When you combine the unshakable stability of proper savings with the boundless freedom of long-term investing, you create a genuinely unstoppable financial future.
So, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to think about today. Are you currently in the saving stage or are you in the investing stage? Now, wherever you are right now is perfectly fine, but armed with this 5-step roadmap, you now have the exact tools you need to take that next step. Don't let your money just sit in a jar doing nothing. Build your safety net, plant your seeds in the soil, and let time work its magic. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive visual analysis, and I absolutely cannot wait to see you dive into your own wealth building journey.